Okay, in this video I want to talk about the life cycle of a component. Again, the documentation of lit is really good, so go read up on that. I'm going to go through some of them that might be useful. The one that we've already used is the constructor, and in the code, what we do in the constructor, what you typically do use the constructor for, is to initialize your variables if they have a default value. Like in our case, obviously the jokes that we get from build time, and then the number of jokes and the messages, or the message. Well, the message we haven't set because the default is actually null. So one of the other things that you can do is you can hook into the life cycle of lit when the component is added to the DOM or removed from the DOM. That's useful if you want to do something on, let's call it startup, or display up. So as soon as the component gets added to the DOM, but before render, this gets called, and it's called connected callback. So you can have a method, let's add it here. So this happens after constructor but before a render gets called. And this is useful to do things like on startup, or to add listeners that you, especially external listeners, so listeners to the document or the window that you want to remove again on disconnected callback. Listeners to your own object, so listeners to this, you don't have to remove. That will get cleaned up automatically. So we can, as an example, we can say that we want to, initially we have the 10 that comes from build time. Let's add some more on first load. So what we want to do is, firstly, is we want to create a method. Let me just move this screen in here. So this is on the Java side. This is my RPC service. So we already have the fetch joke. Let's add init jokes where we can pass in a size, and all that we really do is we add a few jokes on initialization. So that's simple enough. So what we want to do is we want to add it here in the connected callback, and we'll do basically copy from this fetch more jokes, because we're doing pretty much the same thing. We set the message to initialize some more jokes, and then we call init jokes. This time we pass in a parameter, because here we have a parameter. Now how that works is it takes in an object that has a key value of whatever is your parameter. So in our case we have size, so we want to pass in size equals 5, so we fetch 5 more, and then we get obviously the response back again. Now we can reset the message, and now we just add all 5 of those to our jokes, and we change the length of the jokes. So this should be enough. Let's see what that does. Okay, I've rebuilt and restarted the application. So you will note now, let me just close this, here as soon as we, sorry, I didn't refresh. No, something isn't working. Let's quickly see what that is. Okay, I actually just didn't rebuild, I thought I did. So if we go here now, you'll see that there's our message, initialize some jokes, and it will go and find 5 jokes and then return, and then it's got its 5 jokes. Now this happens every time that this page gets re-rendered. So if I go back here and I go back there, then it's added to the DOM again, so the callback happens, so this happens. And it will remember your jokes it will remember what you have, your static variables. So you'll see we're up to 20 jokes. If we do 21 and then we go back and in again, we should be 26. Okay. Another useful thing that you might need is to actually see what's happening. So this log file here, the Dev UI log file, let me just clear it, will show you all the communication flow between the browser and the JSON, any JSON RPC messages between the browser and the server basically. So for instance, if I click more, you can actually see the full spec compliant JSON RPC message that's been generated in the background. And this is how we tie it to your backend, because we send up jokes and okay, this one's got no parameters, but if we show the one with the parameters, this one you'll see that we actually pass in inner jokes parameter size 5 and then ID 7, and then it gets, and then you see the response back. So that's pretty useful. The other lifecycle methods that you have from lit is obviously then the disconnect. So as an example here, if you maybe want to, I'm not going to show it, but you can probably say that we don't want to add every time, or we do want fresh jokes every time, but we'll take 5 away when we disconnect again, so that the total stays 10 or whatever. But any listeners that you've opened, external listeners, needs to be closed in the connected callback, otherwise you'll start opening multiples. You also have then a method called first update, so it'll basically be constructing connected callback, then it'll call render, and then you have an option to say only for once, so basically the first time I've called render after a connect, you can do something, which is first update. And there's a few others. If you read on the lifecycle section in the documentation, you'll find what else is possible. So what we'll do next is we'll look at how do you stream data. So this is still data that is runtime data, but we want to stream it down to the screen so the screen stays updated.